So I am a biological anthropologist. I study primates across the primate order, and my interest is in friendship and social relationships, and basically why primates evolved sociality and social relationships, but also how we use our social relationships and social support to deal with stress and regulate our physiology. And so my interest in this started when I took a summer field course in Nicaragua studying howler monkeys. And I just fell in love with sitting in the forest and watching monkeys. But since then, I've studied monkeys, apes, and humans. And so my PhD research was looking at friendship in spider monkeys in Costa Rica and how that helps them to cope with stress. And then I did a postdoc studying friendship and stress in a number of human populations, including teenage girls and women of color in science. And now I'm starting some new research looking at female bonobos at the Milwaukee County Zoo, looking at friendship and sex and how that helps them cope with stress. The story that my research tells is about how we evolved social relationships and specifically how women evolved to rely on each other for social support. And the reason I got interested in this question is kind of twofold. One is I have good friendships and friendships are very important to me, but I also have, dealt with friendships that end up having friend breakups or competition with friends. And the literature on cooperation versus competition in female primates really interested me because a lot of it, including a lot of the older literature from the 80s and 90s, that's specifically from these feminist primatologists that were trying to identify the role of female primates and how women shaped human evolution, really emphasize that maybe it's something unique or special or rare amongst primates for females to cooperate with unrelated females. And so there was a lot of kind of discounting the abilities of female primates to form social bonds with one another outside of cooperating with relatives. And so that really interested me, especially because when I started doing some of my research, it seemed like what I read about what primates are doing didn't always fit what I was observing. And so that led from me kind of switching directions from being interested in looking at social development, which is what I focused on for my master's research, to looking specifically at female-female relationships and looking at a hypothesis called the tend and befriend hypothesis that proposes that female primates actually did evolve to actually seek support from other females, specifically as a way of coping with stress, because often a lot of our conceptualizations of stress come from thinking of the fight or flight response, which was developed based on data from male rats. And had they studied females, they might have learned earlier that there's also the freeze response. And the thing is, after you have a situation where you fight or flee or freeze, you then have this elevated stress, especially if, you are a female primate that decides to freeze in place with your offspring. And the idea is that by seeking out friendship and affiliation, things like grooming and embracing in primates or hugging and talking to one another for humans, it can actually increase some of our social bonding hormones and then bring our stress levels down to baseline levels so that we're not dealing with chronic elevations of stress. I think there's a couple different motivations I have for kind of telling these stories. One of them is because I think understanding our evolution and understanding our physiology and our inclinations for social bonding helps us understand ourselves. And that's the thing that I love about anthropology, It's everything we're doing one way or another relates to the human experience and helps us to understand ourselves better. But the other reason is I really like to tell the stories about the primates themselves. And one of the things I think people really underestimate if they've only had limited experience seeing monkeys or apes at a zoo and haven't had the time to really just sit and watch them or take a class and learn about them is they don't recognize how similar they are to us and how complex and interesting their social lives are. Primates are, across the board, with only a few exceptions, incredibly social animals, and their lives are often filled with a lot of drama and really sweet moments and constantly kind of jockeying and jockeying for position or observing what other individuals are and kind of making decisions on that. One of my favorite stories to tell about studying bonobos at the Columbus Zoo is to describe these two males who were kind of getting jealous about getting to groom this one other male, but then they would have these dramas where they would try and make the other jealous and like look at one another and be like, are you watching this? And the rest of the bonobos are all just like over their drama and kind of rolling their eyes about it. And it's incredibly just moving how human like it is when you get to see these kind of day-to-day social dramas play out in real life. But it's only the sort of thing that you would know about if you're spending hours sitting and watching them. And so I like to tell those stories because it really helps people understand how similar they are to us, and I think give people a greater motivation to want to conserve them. I'm starting up research at the Milwaukee County Zoo, and I'm really excited about this because it's actually a project I've, in some form or the others, been dreaming about for years, and I'm finally starting to get it to actually happen. And so it's going to be looking at the females in the group. So we're going to collect data on both adult males and adult females. And so it's focused on understanding female social relationships and their social networks. So we're doing observational studies of their behavior. Basically, I and research assistants will be at the public observation areas recording their behaviors. But then the keepers are also going to be collecting urine samples that we're going to be assaying for a couple hormones, cortisol to look at stress, and oxytocin, which helps us understand social bonding. And so by looking at both the behavior and the hormones, we can get a better idea of understanding how the female-female sexual behaviors that occur in bonobos, which are very common, contribute to their overall social relationships. And so one of the cool things about bonobos that gets a lot of attention is they have a lot of sexual behavior between all combinations and all numbers and ages of individuals. Most of it is actually pretty fast. It tends to happen in kind of high tense environments, such as when groups are reuniting or when they're getting really exciting tasting food and they want to diffuse any tension, or, you know, basically they have sex before they eat to avoid fighting over food. But a lot of that theorizing about why they do it doesn't really put it from the perspective of understanding why the individuals have their own reasons for engaging in sexual behaviors with specific individuals. And so I'm looking at how those sexual behaviors fit with things like their grooming and their huddling and all the other behaviors they're doing, and how that contributes to both the female social relationships and the structure of their social networks.